So the quarterfinals will be Australia versus Lebanon, New Zealand versus Fiji, Tonga versus Samoa, England most likely versus PNG. By the time you watch this, we'll probably
we'll
have
know
a result.
by the time. Yeah.
But look, it's probably going to be PNG. It'd be one of the biggest losses probably ever for them if they don't win this game to get into the quarterfinals. Look, what do you? All right, we'll preview quickly. Oh no, we'll go through the games first. Sorry. Anyway, so New Zealand versus Ireland, 48-10. This for me, Jerome Hughes. Wow, absolutely amazing. Just watching Jerome Hughes, I'm like, I don't think we've seen the best of him. Like, I think there's still more to come. We just forget. We're talking about a kid in his third year of 7. Think about that. His third year of 7, or 3.5 or whatever. I'm sure someone has the friggin' days and hours and minutes in the comment section. We're talking about a guy absolutely killing it at 7 in his first game back. Roughly 3 years playing the 7 role. I don't think we've seen the best of Jerome Hughes. I think that I would go like, okay, look, there's Cleary and Cleary is alone for sure. But when it comes to a running game for a 7, I don't know. I think Hughes is probably number 1 when it comes to running game. And I think that, let's say Cleary plays his best game of footy and Hughes plays his best game of footy. I don't think the gap is as big as a lot of people think. Now, we're talking about the back-to-back premiership. We're talking about a guy that's akin to GOAT status for that age when it comes to stats. But when they both play their best, although I still think Cleary is the number 1 half, I truly believe the gap between them is nowhere near as most people would go, are you serious? It's not even close. I don't think it's as big as people think. What do you reckon, Guru?
I think that the halfback that is most likely to outplay Nathan Cleary on any given day is without a doubt Jerome Hughes. I don't think there's any doubting that. And I think, as much as this game was against Ireland, we're well and truly aware of that. He's been doing this for years. When he comes off that right foot, shut the gate. It's over. If he comes off his right foot 20 metres out, it's done. He's going to score every day of the week. And you got to remember for Hughesy too, this is his first game in 6-7 weeks? I mean, he's been out for quite some time. And to come back in that fashion, very impressive. Obviously a Kangaroos fan, and if we could play the Kiwis eventually without Jerome Hughes, I'd be stoked.
I understand it's not a strong opposition, but newsflash, every big team has played not strong opposition, and I don't think any 7 has had that good of a running game, especially the first half. So really exciting, and it's exciting for New Zealand. You've got this gun 7 that's one of the best in the comp, top 3. Then you've got a young 6 in regards to Dylan Brown, who's 22. It's super exciting. You got Foran leading them in regards to off the field. It's super exciting. In saying all that with that positive stuff, I will say I was a little bit disappointed with New Zealand as a whole. I thought they looked a bit clunky, which is understandable. It's Hughes' first game. I thought Dylan Brown was struggling a little bit to get used to the timing of a guy like Hughes because he's probably so used to a guy like Moses, who's a very different player. Now, I think the Irish had a very specific game plan of just rushing up. And usually when you've got a game plan of rushing up, if you're in a club side and you've played together so long, you immediately recognize it. You go, okay, we know what's happening here. Let's change our rhythm. Let's change our spacing. Let's change the distance between us and them. And then we'll be able to score, in regards to kicks in behind, hitting short lines, quick play the balls. I just think because New Zealand, although they were a little bit disappointing and they were a little bit clunky, I think it's understandable because they've got 2 new halves playing together. So although a little bit clunky, understandably. What do you think of the game, Guru?
Yeah, mate. I mean, it is what it is. New Zealand, they got the job done. I agree with you. I wasn't overly stoked with their performance, and I don't think they would be either. But as you said, Hughes' first game. Have him and Dylan Brown played together before? Did they play a test at the start of the year, Matty?
I'll Google it.
Yeah,
yes, they played once. They beat Tonga.
Sweet. So one game, the first time they've played together in X amount of time. So a little bit clunky. And it's also not anywhere near their full strength side. I don't think Nakora, he'll be playing in the centres. I don't think that Nelson will be starting on an edge. So still plenty of changes. You've also got, I think we all forget, Brandon Smith, as good as he is, he's still learning the position that he's playing at the end of the day. So as always is the way with these Kiwi sides, you're crazy to judge them on the group stages. you judge them on their last 2 weeks because that's when they tend to play their best footy.
Yeah, and also, one big glaring problem is the goal kicking. Holy shit!
Yeah.
If they convert all their goals, it's probably bloody 60 points. But I guess, I wanted to talk. We'll talk about Hargreaves first, then we'll talk about the goal kicking. The Hargreaves comes up, sent 10 in the bin for half time when he's high tackle on Ireland prop. I'll be honest here. I thought the commentators were a bit dramatic about this. I'm happy to be wrong. Maybe I'm too old school. I don't know. And I'm not saying like, oh, yeah, I love it when they used to drop elbows and heads. Rah, I'm not at all. Yes, it was a head high. Yes, I'm happy with 10 in the bin. But I kind of felt like it bounced up off the ball and it was just an aggressive tackle that went wrong. And I kind of feel like the fact that it was Hargreaves, because he's, got the form, made it even more dramatic than if it was another forward that, made that tackle. To be clear, yes, it was a head high. Yes, it was 10 in the bin. But I don't know. I personally was like, he was talking about swinging arms and that. And I was like, I didn't see a swinging arm. I saw a bloke trying to wrap a player up. And again, I'm happy to say I'm incorrect in regards to it was a swinging arm or whatever, but I thought he was trying to wrap the ball up. I didn't see a swinging arm. His shoulder and arm was swinging at the same time. Am I crazy here? Am I being Guru, or did you think it was pretty bad?
No, I didn't think it was as bad as what they carried on with. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, once you get this tag in rugby league, it's hard to shake. And Jared is just one of those guys. Unfortunately, it's not fair, but they're always going to go after him. If that was a winger that made that tackle, very different conversation, I think.
Well, what's crazy is it wasn't as bad, but one of the Irish players did a head high, and it wasn't as bad. But then they were like, oh, that's part of his game. That's what makes him so great is because he's so passionate. And then, you heard the commentator catch himself, and he's like, yeah, similar to Hargreaves, he's just got to rein it in a little bit. And it's like, bruh. And when I'm watching, I'm like, you know what? Maybe when people hear Australian commentators, we're super biased. So I don't know. But it did seem like, I personally thought, yep, 10 in the bin. Yep, a week should be good, in my opinion. Timmy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, boys. I think there was a little bit too much carry on that one. It was definitely a reputational-based thing with Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. He, as Guru mentioned, if it's a squeaky clean player with a better image, when I say better image, a better judiciary record and not being known for being such a ruthless player on field, there's no way the carry-on is as much as it was. So 10 in the bin, move on, get over it.
It got called a dog shot. I was like, what? How's that a dog shot? What are we talking about here? Yeah, and look, I know that there's some people that are very passionately anti-Hargreaves, and that's understandable. He crosses the line. It was wrong. He's got crazy form. It was his first game back from suspension, if I recall correctly. So I'm granting all that. I'm not saying he's some unfairly maligned player, but when you look at the tackle, it wasn't I personally don't think it was as bad as some people were saying. But let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think that it was a bit worse than what we're making out? Or do you think that, maybe it was because of the fact that he does have a tendency to do it quite regularly that made it a little bit worse? Now, the kicking. This is interesting. This is because, when it's fine to do this in the group stages, but do you think this may be a selection error from Michael Maguire that they don't have a kicker currently? Or am I not remembering a kicker that's going to come back in and be able to kick?
Mate, I was just having a look through the squad myself, and there isn't really a standout kicker, especially in this 18 they've got here. Matty, can you have a look at the extended squad to see? But
I honestly don't think there is, man.
Yeah.
I went through it when I was watching. I don't think there is.
And who kicked the other night? Jordan Rapana kicked the other night. Timmy, is he in the top?
He's ordinary, mate. He's not
in the top 3 Canberra kickers.
I absolutely love Jordan Rapana, but the man was not put on a footy field to kick goals. Granted, he's kicking for his country, so he's doing something right. Yeah. But when we look at coming up in what's likely to probably be a semi-final clash with Australia, with Nathan Cleary kicking on one side and, say, Jordan Rapana or Dylan Brown kicking on the other side, you're essentially giving away a 4 to 6 point start against Australia, which is just, you're starting on the back foot big time. So I'm just trying to think, is there anyone that could have been selected in the squad, the entire squad, for their goal kicking? I'm trying to go through the options, but there's not a lot.
Jordan Rapana kicked in their mid-season game as well. So, they've had a bit of time to think about this and they haven't been able to come up with any. And I don't know if there's just no options out there. I'm not sure. But, Yeah, I think it could be costly at some point.
I mean, surely, and this is hard because he's an international coach, and maybe he did do this, so apologies if you did, but surely you're reaching out to the key guys and going, mate, I need you to begin practice kicking immediately so that when we get to the World Cup, you're ready to go. And maybe he did reach out and do that. Like, for example, so Jordan Rapana started, and then Dylan Brown took over, and boys, I love Dylan Brown. I love him more than, he's the coolest man in all the land, but coolness doesn't get the ball over the post, unfortunately. He wasn't the best, and then he was getting kind of heckle, and they were cheering when he did get one. It's a real concern. It's a real concern because Australia, they're not going to allow a blowout score against. I mean, maybe they will, and New Zealand will be one of the great victories, but I don't think Australia's going to allow a blowout to happen, and it really could be a 4 to 6 point difference, and that could be the game. That really could. That's how closely these two squads are aligned.
Just on that, Kempy, I was just having a look back to their last games they played in 2019. They had 2 goal kickers during that year. Isan Masters was one of them. The other one was Jermaine Osako, who neither guys you probably want to pick in your 17, but geez, I can definitely talk for Jermaine Osako. He's definitely going to strike a ball better than Jordan Rapana, but I definitely want Rapana in my side more. I think they're in a tough spot as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's one of those things that if you can keep like a system for a long period of time as an international coach, you can start implementing picking certain players that are going to be key players and get them to start practicing at training and that. Anyway, so we'll just say New Zealand, although a little bit clunky, the clash, if they do make it through to Australia, oh my God, it is going to be a clash for the ages. I still think Australia has a little bit of class. I think that the real point of difference, the scary point of difference for New Zealand is their forward pack, because it's a motherfucker. It is a motherfucker. So there's not much difference separating them. Now, quickly on to England versus Greece. Look, England, wow. We talked. What did we speak about last week? We said we need them to be ruthless. You can't afford to be rolling into the quarterfinals, letting lower tier teams putting 12, 16 or whatever it is on you. And they responded. They did exactly that. They came out. They were ruthless. Now, I will say I still believe there's a little bit of a class difference between New Zealand, Australia, and England. But if they can, when it comes to like everything they can do, like everything they can possibly do to be the best they can be, I feel like England are doing it. Like I feel like every player is playing nearly as good as they can play, and they're just getting closer and closer to the standard of Australia and New Zealand. And I know, like, English are listening, they'll be like, you serious? Like, we only lost 6-0 last World Cup to Australia in a World Cup final. But I just think that we were probably guilty of underestimating England coming into this World Cup. And I think they proved, well, they personally, I can't speak for Guru or Timmy, personally, I think they've proven me not wrong, but they've definitely gone better than I expected them to go. There's absolutely no denying, in my opinion, that they're a top 3 side in the World Cup currently. Whereas coming into the World Cup, I think most people would have had them 4th or 5th even, maybe even 6th. So they've proven a lot of people wrong, including myself, I guess. And I think that guys like Dominic Young, wow. And also like little things. So they bring on their kind of like Mark Schneid. He's like essentially one behind George Williams. He was arguably man of the match. And I just think that yesteryear, did England have that kind of depth? I don't know if they did. Like, they could just bring someone in and then put 94 points on. Like, they were usually, their first 13 was pretty strong, and then outside of that was a little bit. So I really think I like what I'm seeing in England. I really think that they're improving. I think that, put it this way, in 4 years' time, rolling into the World Cup, I will be surprised if they're not very close to Australian standard. That's how much progress I feel like they're making. Guru, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think the beauty of it is that, the vast majority of the guys that we're watching for England, they are young guys. So, like, you almost feel like if it's not this World Cup, you feel like the next one, they could really give it a shake, because those guys that are 23, 24 now, 4 years' time, you're 27, you're 28, you come into the peak of your career, you get a new bunch of young guys coming in as well. So I'm really excited for them. I'm very keen to see next week, where I'm assuming they'll play Papua New Guinea, who I think have been really good throughout this competition. I think they lost their first game, and I thought to Tonga, I thought they were incredibly unlucky to lose that game. I've been really impressed with PNG, despite them missing a couple of really key guys, and I think they'll really take it to England. And I think it'll be interesting to look back in 3 weeks' time and go, okay, did England go through the group stage a little bit too easy, or have they just taken confidence from that group stage to roll into those big games? Because, the reality is 3 good wins. Samoa, essentially didn't get off the bus that day, gave it to France despite conceding a couple of tries, and then had a training run against this Greek side. I wonder if it is maybe not the greatest preparation that they need to take on your Australia, your New Zealands, these sort of sides heading into finals.
Yeah, granted, it goes without saying, this is when the real competition starts in regards to getting close to those top-tier teams. But I don't know. I can't recall an England side being this dominant through the group stages. Again, maybe you could talk about the 90s and that. I don't know much about the 90s in regards to World Cup footy. But I just think that, it's very easy to go, and I'm not saying you're doing the scary, but look at their opposition. But it's but they did what they were supposed to do. They won by 90 fucking points, or 90 or 88 points. What else could they do? It's almost like the Samoa situation. They had a big win last week. They had a big win this week. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, yeah, but it's against lower tier teams. It's yeah, but what else? What could they do then to convince you that they're doing everything they can? So Newcastle Knights must be licking their lips at Dominic Young, surely.
How improved is he over the last 2 years? I didn't think he'd last 10 rounds when he started last year.
No, agreed.
He was all over the place.
Yep, his positioning, his catching, it was this guy is way out of his depth in the NRL, and then boom, he has been outstanding. What do you reckon about England, Timmy?
Yeah, they're going to be heading into the knockout stages with about as much momentum as a side could really have. And what's intrigued me, or impressed me, I should say, is just the versatility between players in the key positions. So for the game on the weekend against Greece, had Makinson playing at fullback, Wellesby, the star half from game 1 of the tournament against Samoa, played at centre. They had Snide and George Williams in the halves. And the fact that Snide kicked goals over Makinson in this clash, amazing goal kicker, by the way, I just wonder which way they're going to go with their spine to coming next week's first knockout round, because you've obviously got Sam Tompkins to come back in at fullback there, but I'm not certain of which way they will go in terms of Snide and Makinson and where they're going to play these players. Is it a case of them saying, all right, these 4 or 5 of our best players, find a way to get them in your team wherever you can? If that is, I don't think Makinson will play fullback because they've got Tompkins coming back as a skipper of that side, but playing players all over the shop. So this is going to bode really well for them come knockout stages, dealing with any potential injuries, if there's any HIAs mid-game, any of that, they're very well prepared for it. And the one for me who's just getting better and better with age, and I know it's hard against some of this opposition, but big Tommy Burgess has been wonderful for them. 49 minutes, 12 tackle busts, pair of tries. Now, not looking too much into it in terms of Greece, but when they do get to these knockout stages in the bigger games, there's the mongrel in Tommy Burgess and Johnny Bateman, and I reckon they're the ones who are going to need to stand up because they're going to come up against some pretty hectic forward packs, and they're the 2 big ones for me.
Yeah, in regards to another point of this game, Victor Radley went off in the first half. Their main linchman in the middle, or linchpin kind of guy, that all their attack around it. And I think that's also not really getting appreciated. They did this with as you just alluded to, Timmy, a makeshift kind of not even their best side. You could argue that maybe only Australia has really managed to keep that standard when they bring in other players. I think even New Zealand suffered a little bit when they moved people around. I think it's really exciting for England. I think as well, I think it's going to put, a lot of these English guys don't want to move to Australia, which is understandable. It's away from home. But I tell you what, there's a fair few players in there. If I'm an NRL club, I'm fucking knocking on their door. I think the period where it was almost like, don't bring Super League players over, it just doesn't work. I think after this World Cup, you'd have to say, again, let's wait until they play Australia and New Zealand for sure. But I don't know. I'd be looking a lot harder than we've been looking over the last few years.
Well, there's the guy that I mentioned during the season. He's linked to the Newcastle Knights. We got to see him the other day. Kai Pearce-Paul, big bit of gear, playing in the centres. He could play in the back row or in the centres. He had a try. He had 2 tries. He went for 197 metres, 2 line breaks and 7 tackle breaks. I reckon he's one that could come over here and be really successful. He's very young, so I think it's the perfect time to bring him over here now. So hopefully the Newcastle Knights are able to lock down his signature because he's one that I really like.
Agreed. Now, Fiji versus Scotland. We'll just go through this quickly because I don't really have that much time. But, Fiji, they're almost a little bit of a bogey side in regards to, I wouldn't take them too lightly if I'm New Zealand. I wouldn't take them too lightly. I don't think that, obviously New Zealand have a better side on paper, but I don't think it's so out of the realm that Fiji put pressure on them, and then all of a sudden what happens if New Zealand, thought they were going to have an easy game, and then they're in the trenches, and then some miraculous thing happens, Kikau or Api or Sivo does something amazing. I don't think they should be slept on in regards to, I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, oh yeah, New Zealand will definitely win. We'll just move forward. Like, don't get me wrong, they're definitely very, very short favourites. But I think Fiji have been pretty good. I really do. Now, obviously the 14 points is a bit concerning from Scotland. I think Fiji are a better side than that, but when you watch them play and you see some of the stuff they can do and break games open out of the middle of nowhere, I think Fiji have done really well this World Cup.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it should be noted that in this game, they were well and truly in control. Then Api, he went off after 32 minutes. If Api stays on the field the whole game, they're a completely different side, and it changes their entire game plan. It gives them so much direction, obviously. So keeping Api on the field will be massive for them. And I agree with you, mate. I think they'll give the Kiwis a run for their money. I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand run away with it in the last 20, 25. But I think it's going to be a really good game, that one.
Timmy?
Yeah, boys, last start, Fiji versus New Zealand. Fiji knocked them off in the knockout stages, quarterfinal of the 2017 World Cup, that infamous, I think it was 4-2 victory. So on that game alone, I know it was 5 years ago now, but with the form that Fiji have shown so far this tournament, the Kiwis, well, they know they can't take them lightly because they've lost to them before and been knocked out of a World Cup. So I cannot wait for this game. As I said, they'll be going with that underdog mentality with absolutely nothing to lose. The Kiwis, all the pressure on them. They played some really, really good footy. Can't wait for it.
Now on to Australia versus Italy. This is an interesting one. This is a really interesting game. A little bit concerned about the completion rate. I think even they kind of mentioned it. Again, Australia still played really well, and I just love their defence. They're so aggressive and ruthless, and I personally don't think any other World Cup side has the same consistent, aggressive, clinical defence. Like, it is just super, super clinical, super aggressive. They never give you a set to just, kind of get through your plays. But it was a little bit concerning in regards to completion rate. Granted, you had a 6 and a 7 that are both 7s and they hadn't played together before. I still think Australia are clear. When it comes to what I've watched from Australia compared to every other team, I still consider them clear favourites. But let's talk about the two big points, in my opinion, coming out of this game. First is DCE versus Cleary. I just think that, you guys know my feelings on this. Like, I think it's DCE's time. I think it's Cleary's time. I really do. And I got a lot of respect for Cleary, for DCE. After the game, he got interviewed and he was very, very honest, but also, very accepting of the situation. Would have been very easy for him to feel a bit like, well, hang on a sec, I've been around here for about 10 years. Like, maybe I should be the incumbent or whatever, but he seemed very respectful, but also honest. But in my opinion, it's got to be Cleary. It really does. What do you reckon, boys?
Yeah, I agree, mate. And I thought DCE had the better game in this one, and it doesn't change anything for me. It has to be Cleary. There's no question about it whatsoever in my mind. You mentioned the completion rate there, and I understand that the Kangaroos had more ball and whatnot, but they made more errors than Italy. And fuck, there was some shit errors in there. Like 10 errors for Australia, 9 for Italy in a 66-6 win.
Yeah, and the thing is like we spoke how praisingly last week of the ruthlessness, and that's an example of not being ruthless. It's an example of going, look, we're going to get the win. Let's try some plays. Let's try and score in every second or third play, which is human nature. It happens. And you could make the same argument for England last week where, they for 15 minutes or so, they just lost their way a bit and thought they could score whenever they could. But so I'm hoping that that's not – I don't think it will be. I think that it is Lebanon, so it's going to be interesting to see how they turn up. But I think that was more a case of just they thought that, we can score kind of every play, and then they made those errors. Timmy, what do you reckon about DCU versus Cleary?
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal as well, boys. Nathan Cleary, every day of the week for me, is the Australian number 7 for these big knockout games coming up. What was interesting is Mal Meninga telling media that he's considering playing both Cleary and Ches in the side, which, he's lost the plot if he does. Even if he wins the World Cup with them like that, he probably will. I don't care. He's lost the plot because you've got Ben Hunt who can step in the halves. You've got Harry Grant who can play in the halves if someone goes down. It just makes no sense. So if he seriously plays both of them in this side, it's basically him going, I can't decide, so I'm going to pick them both. But it's just got to be Cleary by himself, doesn't it?
And mate, to be honest with you, if he does decide to pick both of them, this Kiwi, eventually when they play the Kiwis, this Kiwi pack is too good to fuck around with two halfbacks in your side. Yeah. It's ridiculous. You can't do it, and you can't possibly leave Ben Hunt or Harry Grant out of this side. So I'd be very against it. I think he's just playing the media a bit, and I think that. Me personally, watching it as the Queenslander, I see a lot of similarities to the way the Queensland side kind of was handled in regards to there was definitely loyalty, but there was almost this the jersey isn't owed to you. It isn't owed to you. You have to, every time you cross that line, you better earn that jersey. And and you can see it, every game they've played, you don't see any player being super lazy. Their line speed is always good. They're always running hard. It'd be very easy for a few of those Australian superstars to go, look, Mal, I'm going to wait till the finals. Give us a call then. Until then, I'm going to get through 5 to 10 hit-ups and it's going to win. It's all good. But it hasn't been like that. It really hasn't been like that. I personally think it's more just about creating competitive tension around the squad. Because that's what you need in the better squads. There was even a little report of bloody Tino and Lindsay Collins pushing and shoving at training. And when I heard that, I was like, that's music to me bloody ears. The fucking big dogs are going at it, and they're about to play like Italy. That's beautiful stuff. That's the intensity at which they're training. And so I think that's the environment he likes to create where no, we're here to, every single player is here to fucking do a job. And if you aren't going to respect the jersey, no matter how good you are, you don't deserve to be here. But I think it's going to be Cleary. And they could still win the comp with DC as 14, but I think it'd be crazy to lose a guy like Ben Hunt and Harry Grant in the middle there for a guy like DC who has, he's played a bit of 14 for Queensland, but yeah, Benny Hunt and Harry Grant have got to be it. Another little schmokey, one of our favourite boys. I guess we were a little bit surprised that he made the squad, even though we were talking about how he was essentially, if Latrell and Tommy weren't in, that he should maybe get a chance at the New South Wales centre spot. Campbell Graham, do you reckon he may have snuck his way into a wing spot over Tuolangi? Now, Tuolangi's been good as well. So what do you reckon, Timmy?
Well, my initial thoughts were still Fox and Val on the wings. So I think there won't be a spot for Campbell Graham still, but you can tell he's clearly sneaking his way in there. He's winning over a few in the Australian camp because he's getting more and more of a run, but I still think they'll go with Val on the wing with the Fox. What do you reckon, Guru?
I told you bastards this last week and you laughed at me. I'm telling you, he's closer to this side than what you're giving him credit for. I still reckon they will go Val, but mate, I wouldn't be surprised if they do give Campbell Graham an early shot during the final series just to see what he's about. Because, mate, his kick returns and everything have been sensational. I know it's not against top-tier nations, whatever, leave it in the comments, but I've been so impressed with him. And, we've spoken about him, obviously, for Rabbitohs this year. He's been great. When he used to play on the wing, he was sensational there. So I'm expecting Val to get that wing spot, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see Campbell Graham getting a gig there.
Well, see, this is what I feel. I agree with you. Val, Addo-Carr, for sure. But I tell you what, next year and the year after, because this has been the perfect opportunity for Campbell Graham. Just get an opportunity, even against lower tier, show what he can do. Val. How old is Val? What, about 29, 30, around there? Could you please check for us, Matty? And so
27.
It's just
Val.
27.
Is he really?
Holy,
Yeah,
Fucking hell. That's unbelievable.
holy shit.
Yeah.
I guess he was
How
like
old's-
that. That was pretty much his first year when they won that comp, wasn't it? That was only 2016,
Okay.
so that's crazy.
I mean,
he's 27.
it's-
He's already been to the NFL and come back. That's fucked.
Yeah, come back and he's killed it. But to be fair though, I think that, like, let's say Campbell Graham goes back and plays really well next year, and let's say Val Holmes comes out and has a quiet year, this little opportunity here could be the reason why Campbell Graham gets a crack over Val, and all of a sudden it's gone from one of the best international wingers we've seen in Val to, oh shit, like, we really don't know who's going to be picked there. And this is not, I think Val's played really well, like, not all. It's more just a compliment to Campbell Graham. And I think he's taken a lot of people by surprise. I think a lot of fans that don't really watch Rabbitohs games, because he doesn't do big highlight plays, because you don't see him, all over the news, big stretch, you don't really appreciate what this bloke does. But what I love for Campbell Graham is there's a bunch of Aussie fans that go, oh shit, big stretch on the sting, get him in there. So I agree, it'll be Val and Fox, but I think that, put it this way, how many times have we seen young guys get put in an Australian squad, don't really take their opportunity, and then the next roll around of Australian squad, they just don't really make it? Campbell Graham has done everything he possibly could, as long as he continues to play well at club, to be in the frame, in the conversation, to get a spot in a squad next year. But outside of that, boys, anything else in regards to Australia?
Not a heap, mate. Just obviously we've spoken about him a lot this year, but mate, some of the touches that Latrell Mitchell can have, he's just that one. I think it was Cleary turned him under, and before he even caught the ball, I knew he was going to score a try. There was just no stopping him when you turn him under like that. He is just a juggernaut, and there was an offload that he threw to Taulagi. Like, he just can't be stopped. On his day, he just cannot be stopped, Latrell. And I think when I do have a look at these other sides, I just don't think any other team has a centre like him that you can just throw the ball to, and he can create 4 tries in a game out of absolutely fucking nothing, because he is the biggest, the fastest, and the most talented guy on the field. He is just a freak.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think the one thing for me coming out of this, what was an unbelievably lopsided weekend of Rugby League World Cup action, and, the naysayers are out there saying, oh, this is shit. There's too many one-sided affairs, but it's been so good to see in all of these games the Minnow Nations are getting across the stripe. This weekend, in all the blowouts, they all scored a try and creating these just magical moments for their country that, whether it be the try scorer, the bloke who assisted, the bloke who was at the game who saw his Minnow Nation score a try against Australia or New Zealand. There's been some wonderful moments. So good to see them getting on the board.
Yeah, for sure. And just quickly with Latrell, like, you could almost see the opposition be kind of like in awe of, like, he's a different breed. Like, he's a different kind of beast on the field. You look up, you see, that's Latrell Mitchell run at me. I remember when I played Wendell Saylor on his first game back from return from rugby union. And I remember he ran out, and I couldn't believe how big he was. I was like, I thought he was a kind of very fast, not too big winger. He came out, he must have been 105, 110 kegs. And it's similar with Latrell. Like, these guys are huge, and you're going, how are you so big and mobile? And also with your silky hands and Latrell Mitchell, Latrell is the kind of guy, because, like, he's polarizing to some people, and he's almost kind of embraced that now, where he's gone, you know what, if you're going to boo me, if you're going to do this, I'm going to yell back at you. It's almost like, how many times do we have to be reminded about this guy? How many times does he have to take the absolute piss before we just go, he's unbelievable. This guy he is a generational talent. He's still only 24. Oh, he just turned 25 years old. He's got 2 premierships, Origins, Dally M's positional. Like, it is just amazing what he's doing. In regards to the lower tier nations, I understand the people on the, saying, oh, it's blowouts. What's the point of this? What's the point of that? It's like, what's the alternative? You just stuff it. Let's not even try to grow the game. It's like, at least put it this way. How long ago was, like, Tonga not even close to Australia? Like, It was almost like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. Now, all of a sudden, we have to genuinely be concerned that Tonga can beat us. Samoa, obviously, it's going to be, we're going to see this week, see how they go, but you can't tell me they haven't improved. And this is the only way that we are going to grow the game, is if we have these blowout scores, but we keep pushing through, we keep the development. And the next game is the perfect example. Lebanon, 74-12. 74-12 Lebanon, and it's not just a one-off because we saw them earlier in the competition. What was it, 36-12 against the Kiwis or something along those lines?
Yep.
Like, Lebanon have been the Cinderella story of the World Cup. They've been the Cinderella story of the World Cup. Rajab was fantastic to score 74 points. I tell you what, I really do like. I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, but Rajab, the guy with the strongest hair in all the land. I like it. He's got something about him. There's something about, like, he doesn't really fit the mold. Like, he's not like a Mitchell Moses kind of silkiness. He's probably maybe a little bit more silky-ish than Josh Reynolds. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to see a bit more of him. But he has that kind of Josh Reynolds cult-like vibe to him, like where you're really a cult hero kind of vibe to him. He seems aggressive. He's in your face. He loves to get amongst it. I think the doggies have got something special there with him.
Hey, Kemby, sorry. I was just going to say, you said before, it wasn't that long ago that your Samoas, your Tongas, they weren't really competing in these World Cups. Like, I just went back to the 2000 World Cup just to show you how far we've come. Like, for example, Ireland beat Samoa in the 2000 World Cup. Ireland beat fucking Samoa. I mean, you can't imagine a world where that happens. What other results do we have here? Papua New Guinea beat South Africa by 10 points. Like you can't tell. France beat Tonga 28-8 in the 2000 World Cup. Like, you can say it's all stupid and it's worth nothing, whatever. The evidence is fucking in front of you that it is worth it, and we have a much better comp for it. There is no doubt about that whatsoever.
And in the meantime, I think the sort of naysayers and the people who are a bit glass half empty going into the group stages, just I think change your perspective a little bit. The group stages are for these minnow nations and give them the opportunity to develop on the world stage and get the attention and give some of these lesser-known players the opportunity to flaunt their talents and create these beautiful moments that we've seen across the tournament so far. The business end of the tournament will come. We're going to get 3 rounds between quarters, semis and final, and we'll see the big dogs slug it out. But just enjoy the group stage for what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. I feel sorry for Lebanon, though. What about their luck getting Australia in the quarterfinals? It's like, oh, shit. Oh, man, we could have got any of the other teams and had a fighting chance. Like, obviously, against New Zealand went okay. But I think Australia's going to be a bit too much. I really do. Wait, sorry, guys. I've got to go soon. So what we'll do is we'll just preview the games rather than review it. Obviously, Tonga 92-10. Great win by Tonga, coming into form at the right time. Samoa 62-4 to France. Another great win for Samoa. But let's get to the previews quickly. Australia versus Lebanon. We'll just do this quickly because, again, I just want to give Lebanon such credit. And there, as I said last week, there is quite a large Lebanese community in Australia. So they're actually positioned quite strangely in the sense that they'll be able to get people with Lebanese descent in Australian systems. But then if they want to play for their heritage, all of a sudden, they're a chance to build kind of out of nowhere. But Australia versus Lebanon, I mean, we'll be quick with this. I think Australia win, and I think they win well. But what an incredible moment for Lebanon as a country to be able to get into the quarterfinals. But let's get to New Zealand, Fiji. How do you see this playing out, Guru?
Yeah, I've got New Zealand winning this one, mate, as I'm sure most of us do. But as I said, I think Fiji will put up a good fight. I'm keen to see the Kiwis put out their full-strength squad. I want to see Papali'i in the back row. I want to see Tapane at 13. I want to see Hughesy, Brown, Manu at fullback. I just want to see them for the next 3 games, or the next 2 games until they play the Kangaroos. I want to see their full-strength side, and I want to see them really build some solid momentum. And I genuinely think the Kiwis could win this whole thing, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Do not count out the Kiwis. They are a scary, formidable, and there's just there seems this special energy around that camp of almost like an alpha aggressive, I don't know. I just get this vibe that they're just waiting for the chance to test themselves. They're waiting to get in a battle with Australia. What do you reckon, Timmy, in regards to New Zealand, Fiji?
Yeah, mate, the Fijians will be out for an ambush, but I think the Kiwis will be far too strong in this. I know probably not the strongest opposition in Ireland, but you look at a few of the stats, and Hughes and Manu had 36 tackle breaks between them in that game. Geordie Rapana had another 12. The probably interesting talking point out of it and looking towards the next game is people sort of questioning the cheese, Brandon Smith, and his ability to go the 80 minutes. I think you've seen a pretty clear game plan by the coach to get 80 minutes into him and big minute games throughout the first 3 rounds of the tournament. They've obviously got Jeremy Marshall-King there who can deputise off the bench, but I think they want the cheese playing 80. Whether that's 80 at hooker or 60 at hooker and 20 off the bench, they've shown a bit of a tendency maybe. I don't know where they'll run with their 14 if it is going to be JMK, but I think they're going to go with Brandon Smith as an 80-minute hooker, which excites me. And he's done it in some softer games. Let's see if he can do it now in a tougher game against Fiji.
I was told the other day he's lost 6 kilos since he arrived over there, the cheese. So, as we said, these Kiwi sides, they always get better for the end.
Yeah, no, I've spoken about that quite a lot. Like, body composition matters for your position. It matters. So you're going to see a different type of cheese. I personally think they go 14. I think they go him out of experience, safety. He can play in that 14 role if he has to. But in saying that, if Jerry Marshall-King gets it, massive congratulations to him. Now, quickly, let's go. Fiji. Look, we don't want to discount Fiji at all. Like they're probably out of all of the could be upsets. Probably Fiji. PNG. I don't mind PNG. I really don't if they win this game. Anyway, so Fiji. Don't count them out. Don't count them out. They've got some superstars that could do something special. Now on to Tonga versus Samoa. Arguably the match of the whole bloody tournament. I cannot wait for this game. And, after the game for Samoa, it seemed like the Samoan coach was a bit kind of like, we've had another big win. Are you going to respect us now? That was kind of vibe I got. He didn't actually say that specifically, but that's a vibe I got. But this is a test, man. This is the test. There's no more talking. There's no more, look at all our potential and look at all our players with the big names and all this rah. All the talk doesn't matter anymore. It means absolutely nothing. Whether you're a $1.05 favourite or whether you're $10 outsider, you're playing for your country. You're playing for Tonga Samoa is some of the most deeply ingrained rivalry you can find in the world in regards to their history, what they've been through against each other, all that kind of stuff outside of rugby league. Time for talk is over, baby. Time for talk is over. How do you see this match playing out, Guru?
Yeah, looking forward to this one. It's going to be a cracker as it always is. To be honest with you, mate, I can't wait till the team list come out. I think both teams are still trying to work out their best halves pairing. Samoa, you've got obviously Jerome Luai, who's been sensational the last 2 weeks. You've got Milford, who I thought he was great yesterday.
Yeah,
and good. You've also got Chanel Harris-Tavita, who 2 weeks ago I thought he was going to be a certainty to be the halfback for this side. I'm not quite sure which direction they're going to go now. And then Tonga, you've got young Katoa, who was unbelievable in his game yesterday, and then you got Amon and Lolahia, who I think Lolahia and Jerome Luai, I think they're the locks in both sets of halves, but it'll be interesting to see which way they go as far as the other guys. So, mate, I can't wait for it. I think Tonga do get the job done here, but mate, it's probably the closest we're going to get to like a Origin sort of style atmosphere, I think, which I'm really looking forward to.
Timmy?
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth there a little bit, Guru. I think it's just going to be a battle of the halves. And I mean, as you said, team list will be very interesting because they do have a few options. I don't know which way Samoa will go, but I suggest that the opportunity to tinker with their side they lost when they got done by 60 against England because it went, all right, we can't afford to rest players and that we need to get on the front foot and get combinations purring for the knockout stages. So the fact they went with Milf suggests that they'll probably do that again. Now, Milf was very good. I would prefer CHT there just because I think he's a bigger body defensively. Milf was great against France, but, pretty soft opposition in that one. I think their forward packs are both unbelievable and may somewhat cancel each other out. I mean, you look at Tonga, in their back row, they're trying to fit Taumalolo, Fafita, Koloamatangi, Olakwatu, Kafusi. It's ridiculous. So,
I agree, Timmy. I will say in the forward pack, I think Taumalolo could be just the difference.
Yeah,
I don't really. Samoa have an incredible forward pack. They have an explosive, completely just tear games apart player. I think Taumalolo might be that guy, and he looked like an angry big fella on the weekend. First try, he just went, "Oi, I dare you to try and stop me." Guska, boom, straight over you. yeah, I think that Taumalola could be the difference in the middle. I agree with everything you guys are saying in regards to halves. That's the key selection for me. It's going to be interesting. Do you go with a guy like Amon, who's had more NRL experience, so it's bigger games, or do you go with like Katoa, who has just been really, really good, but he's also really young? On the other side, could you maybe put Milford at 14 just to I guess protect yourself in case CHT and Jerome don't gel? I'm not sure. It's a tough call, and that is why game one for Samoa was so important. If they lost 24-12, it wouldn't matter. You'd go, that's our 6 and 7 right there. Because they got beaten by so much, as you said, Timmy, it changed everything for them. It changed their whole World Cup because they do not know where they're really at because of the position, the people that they're playing. But as we've said, both teams have done ever since. Well, Tonga have done pretty much what they should have done the whole time. Been a bit scratchy here or there, but they've done what they should really do. Samoa, outside of that first game, have done everything they should do. So you cannot take away from the fact that they have towed up teams that they should towel up, and they've done everything that's been asked of them after that first game. They also had no warm-up match as well, so that may be a reason why they struggled so much in that first game. But again, it all means nothing after this game. That we'll know where either side is, really. We really will. So I cannot wait. I really cannot wait. England versus most likely PNG. Although I definitely back England in, I think PNG do not count these guys out. You telling me the PNG side doesn't have 80 minutes in them that they could do something special? I don't know. What do you reckon, boys?
Mate, I thought, as I said before, I thought PNG were incredibly unlucky not to beat Tonga a couple of weeks ago. And if it was Tonga versus England, we'd be saying how close and how good this game's going to be. So I'm not sure what sort of value you'll be able to get out of PNG, but I've got a feeling it'll be a lot deeper than what it should be.
Agreed. I think, although I think England, this is a real good game for England because it'll be, if they do really well, you go, okay, there's no more questioning as to whether they're a threat. They're a threat. Timmy, how do you see this England versus PNG?
It's going to be a cracker, isn't it? Because, I mean, both sides are coming into it, well, PNG with a game to go, obviously, against Wales, but with a fair bit of momentum, the Pommies in particular. But, will there be some complacency from England? From what we're seeing from them so far, I don't think there will, but you just talk about this underdog status and what it means. You've got nothing to lose, and these PNG boys are going to go out there, assuming they get there, they're going to go out there all guns blazing to rattle this Pommy side, and they've got the menace in them to do it. So, look, I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that there'll be an upset, but I think I'm with you, Cam. If there's going to be one game in the quarters that there will be an upset, well, this might be it.
Be unlike England to shit the bed in a World Cup, wouldn't it? It's a proud
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Oh, my God. I don't think they will. I think we're looking at a very different England side this World Cup. I've been singing their praises quite strongly. But I tell you what, if they take PNG lightly, they'll find themselves in a dogfight, and they'll be the bad thing is if they take them lightly and they find themselves in a dogfight, it's actually not about that game. They can win that game, but they'll be rolling into next week battered and bruised, because if there's one thing you roll out of a PNG game, it's battered and bruised. And they don't want to get into that. They want to tear them apart, go through them. Thanks, boys. Thanks for coming. Get to next week. But, cannot wait for this week, guys. Anything else, boys?
No, mate, I think we're done. Looking forward to a big week of footy, mate. You enjoy yourself over there. Put your feet up. You deserve it.
Mate, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm doing my best, Guru. Doing my best, mate. No, thanks, boys. Always appreciate it. Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate it. And I'll go and fuck myself in Europe.